Hi, everyone, and welcome to our super session today. We're going to be talking about how Facebook got 95% engagement with its on-demand storytelling program. And I want to introduce our crew who's here, my partners in crime. We have Agustin Couto joining us live from Sao Paulo. He is the head of Facebook LATAM. Hi, Agustin.
Hello, everyone. I'm glad to join you virtually here from Brazil.
I know. We wanted Agustin here in person, but travel restrictions did not allow. So we're gonna have you powered through Zoom. We also have Charlie Chung, VP of Business Development. Hey, Charlie.
Hello, everyone.
And myself, I'm Janine Kurnoff, co-founder at The Presentation Company. We are going to give you deeper dive intros in just a moment. I also want to introduce my colleague here, Darren Lewis. He's moderating.
Everyone.
He's going to be our eyes and ears on the discussions in the chat for those joining virtually, for those here with us in Salt Lake. So with that, Darren, how can folks join in?
Hey, welcome everyone. Today we're going to be using Slido to grab some of your questions and answers. We're going to take a couple different breaks during the program to answer those questions. So have a look at the QR code here, look at it with your mobile device, bring up the Slido app, and you'll see the opportunity to add questions for Charlie, Augustin, and Janine.
Perfect. All right. Yeah, we do like to keep this interactive. So for those, I know there's quite a lot of us joining virtually, a couple of us here in Salt Lake. So however you're connected, talk to us. Don't sit back and relax. We want a conversation going because that's the plan here. So I want to take us back to 2017 when, life seemed normal. And we all got to hang out with each other and not wear masks. So it was during 2017 when we at the Presentation Company were leaning into the idea of e-learning. We have ILT storytelling training, we have VILT, and so we thought, all right, this on-demand platform, let's see what that's all about. But I'll tell you what we didn't want. What we didn't want was boring curriculum, that traditional e-learning feel that is robotic and so automated that you lose sight of the human behind the learning. So we knew we didn't want that. At the same time, there was a lot of chatter around a new approach to e-learning, one that was social and collaborative and flexible, where learners are learning together, asynchronously learning together, all online. And so this got us thinking. We thought, yes, we want that. How do we get that? And so we turned to our partners, Facebook and NovoEd. Facebook has been a client of the Presentation Company since 2013. We have really leaned in with Facebook in partnering and collaborating and iterating on many different training programs. And so they were the perfect choice for us to partner with and run some pilots. NovoEd, and you'll learn more about them, has the social collaborative learning technology. And so our power thruple, I've just heard this term recently, power couple, now power, I know it sounds cheesy, but it's really this trifecta came together. And so with that, I would like to give my partners here on the panel an opportunity to tell a little bit more who they are, and then our story will unfold. So Agustin, I'm going to give you the floor first. We'll take us back to the campus there in Menlo Park at Facebook.
Yes, that's a photo from the main campus. Hi, everyone. I'm so glad I was able to join you virtually here from Brazil. And here what I do is head up learning for Facebook Latin America. And it's my mission to make sure everyone's developing the skills needed for the business to succeed. Because we're a fast-moving tech company, I'm always interested in innovating and implementing cutting-edge learning solutions. And that's how we got together with Janine, the Presentation Company, and NovoEd.
Thank you, Agustin. And we have Charlie from NovoEd.
Yes, thanks, Janine. It's great to be presenting here with you and Agustin today. I'm the VP of Business Development at NovoEd. Now, we were started 9 years ago at Stanford's Social Algorithms Lab. And we were founded on this premise that learning together, so encountering other people, exchanging ideas, giving and receiving feedback, should be possible in an online environment in a rich way. So if you can create an online experience where you have guided social interaction, you can really make a major boost to engagement and to outcomes. And in fact, as we'll talk about today as an example, you can take an asynchronous learning program and achieve some comparable results to what you might get in a face-to-face training. So when TPC approached us with the goal of taking their in-person and virtual training and creating something in an on-demand format that had a similar impact and level of engagement, we were excited. We thought our platform is going to be a perfect fit for this, so we were very happy to collaborate with you.
Thank you, Charlie. And I will round off the intros. I'm Janine Kurnoff. I started a company 20 years ago in the Silicon Valley with my business partner and real-life sister, Lee, who's actually here today in Salt Lake. Maybe you can say hello. We started the presentation company. We refer to ourselves as TPC at a time when there was a lot of interest in software like PowerPoint and other presentation tools. And what Lee and I observed is that really talented business people were getting caught up in the slides and the gizmo animations, and they were forgetting how to tell a compelling story. We had lost the human behind the presentation. And so our mission became clear. We want to take the best of visual storytelling and combine it with a human-centric approach that puts people at the center of every narrative. And so our approach caught on. For the last 20 years, we've been providing storytelling training, data visualization training, visual messaging training, even virtual meeting training to some of the world's biggest brands, from Nestle, T-Mobile, Medtronic, techcos like Microsoft, Cisco, Apple, the list goes on, and of course, our client partner here today, Facebook. So because of the last 20 years, we finally got to bottle up all of what we've been teaching teams at these Fortune 500s in a new book called Everyday Business Storytelling. And it's kind of the underpinning of the course that we're going to talk about today and how business storytelling shows up in our everyday. So we have a couple of copies laying around somewhere, I believe, and I know that they are also at the ATD bookstore. All right, so with that, we've got this expertise at the presentation company in human-centric visual storytelling. We took that with NovoEd's social collaborative learning platform, and then a partner like Facebook, who's willing to test and iterate. Yeah, it was like, again, this perfect trifecta was born. And so I will tell you that as a collective, we grappled with several challenges tied to traditional e-learning. Before we share our challenges, we want to hear from you. And I don't want you to overthink this, but scan that QR code, and in one word, what is your biggest challenge when it comes to e-learning? What keeps you up at night when it comes to e-learning? So scan the QR code. I know, Darren, you're going to stand by and see. We're going to create a word cloud. We want to see. It's kind of like therapy. You can get out all your anger and emotions. And so let us know, Darren, as those results come in.
Right, so we're starting to see some results. Thank you. Go ahead, enter your results. I'm going to make those visible for folks on the device.
So what is your biggest challenge?
What does that biggest challenge look like? And we're up to about 15 votes. So let's put those up on the screen, Janine.
All right, cool. Let's see.
There we go. Big one, engagement. Obviously, we see that a lot. The opposite, the equivalent, disengagement, boring, solo, lots of individual words here, excessive content. I love this one around commitment. How do we get commitment? How do we get people to stay engaged, get engaged? I saw one there, and they're all moving around. I saw one wordy, right? Using, taking that content and essentially using it in a text format. Lacking motivation, lacking focus. I don't know, Charlie, Augustin, Janine, any responses to any of these?
No, it's really helpful to see this. I don't know if anyone else is appreciating just seeing the word cloud, and they are coming in. So keep them coming in, because I know we have folks joining virtually, and there's folks here at ATD Salt Lake. Not the right solution, speed, not engaging, unimpactful, old. I do feel that. Sometimes it feels kind of antiquated. This is a really good list.
Yeah, that discussion of retention, actually holding people, and you could see that in a couple different ways, right? Retaining people in the training, but it actually impacts retention overall, as we all know, as we do talent development.
Yeah. Okay, perfect. So thank you, first of all, for playing along. And I think it's important that we look together, and if we can maybe advance. Perfect.
There we go. It's not doing it. I got you.
In a moment, we will advance. There we go. All right. So we're going to share with you the 4 challenges that we really grappled with. Number 1, I think we all can see from our word cloud, traditional e-learning is kind of boring, kind of linear, very one way, right? It also doesn't foster collaboration. Like when I take an e-learning traditionally, you're kind of on your own solo ride, right? You are not in the carpool lane, you are riding solo. So there's no opportunity to get or give feedback, learn together, develop new perspective. We also hear that management feels disconnected from an e-learning. They aren't able to integrate when learning is happening remotely. And then finally, like the question, does it even work? Does it stick? Is that modality a viable solution? And so with all that, we knew as a collective that we wanted to create an on-demand storytelling class that was human-centric and integrated. And what do I mean by integrated? I mean not a patchwork of tools. So not let's grab a discussion chat feature and a poll feature and a separate whiteboard tool and like cobble it together with some videos, but really integrated, where learners are learning together. It's almost like a sequestered environment, and the learning is taking place in this seamless integrated experience. So with that, I mean, really keeping in mind this idea of human-centric and integrated, I just want to take very few minutes here to walk you through what the storytelling program looks like at a glance. That way we have at least a baseline understanding. So as we share our lessons learned, as Augustine shares what Facebook learned along the way, you kind of know what we're talking about. So I'm going to share with you the storytelling class. It's on the NovoEd platform. Couple of things to keep in mind at a glance. There is an active learning journey that we decided is going to be 10 active days. And learners go on this learning journey and they go through the modules and they build. So module 1, getting started, kind of the housekeeping. Module 2, they learn about the power of storytelling. From there, it continues, like how does storytelling show up in our business lives? You know, when that executive's running short on time and says, sorry, you don't have 30 minutes anymore, you have 5. Or what do you do when you're telling a team story? Or what happens when your boss just says, send me 3 slides? Yeah, like how do you do that? You're not even there to tell the story. So the program really layers on fundamentals of business storytelling. Module 4 is where learners get to apply the learning and they craft their own story. And they're giving and receiving feedback to others in the cohort. And I'll explain what the cohort looks like. Once they get through Module 4, they unlock to additional content in what we call ongoing reinforcement. And this is available to learners for a total of 90 days. So the active learning journey is 10 days. And then it continues for a total of 90. Now, from a gamification standpoint, adult learners need a little healthy competition, a little motivation. So you need 700 points to complete the course. And there's a lot of ways that you can get there. We kind of let them choose their own adventure. So it is not like only one way. There's a lot of paths to getting to 700 points. We chose at the presentation company to have learners learn together in a cohort. We chose 30, 60, 90. I know at NovoEd, you have clients that have much larger cohorts. For us, we wanted to maintain a little bit of that premium experience that we give our clients in an ILT and a VILT. So we chose for 30, 60, or 90 size in the cohort. And we have a learning community manager that rides along the journey in the active learning journey with learners. So it's a real human that is there to like high five and nudge and cheerlead and motivate the learners as they go through the learning program. All right, let me switch gears and show you. This is just a snapshot of our course in the NovoEd platform. So you'll notice these are what they call card view, a lot of different content that shows up. And learners get access to all of this right away. We do not hide it. We give them the big picture. They can watch videos, and here's Kevin, one of our facilitators, and it's just really designed to humanize some of the learning. They can chat with each other. They can tag each other in discussion boards. That is all, again, in that seamless integrated experience. Oh, God, I can't stand seeing myself, so let's pass on that guy. But we really tried to humanize the content, make it feel like you're actually in a storytelling class with real humans telling stories. I want to show you this also. There's a leaderboard. So you can see how you fare in the course, how you're doing, where are you at in terms of progress towards completion. And again, lots of peer coaching happening along the way. Points ultimately get you to that certification. And Yeah, I mean, this is a good place to pause. I love Charlie. Maybe you can chime in. The fact that everything is in one place, like we see the active learners in the community, you see what trending discussions are happening, you see your progress. Tell us more about why that is so critical to the NovoEd platform. I mean, I know it's why we chose it, but maybe you can speak to that.
Absolutely, Jenny. So creating a seamless experience for the learner is actually crucial to creating a high quality learning experience. The goal is to create a place that's natural, intuitive, and safe for people to exchange ideas, give and receive feedback, and ask questions. Now, you might ask about, what about the enterprise's communication or collaboration tools? Well, there certainly is a role for those in training, but they're generally not purpose-built for learning. And when you're talking about learning deep topics, there can be a benefit to having a separate space that's just a little bit separate from the emergencies of the working day. If you think about an in-person training, one of the dynamics there is that people are all together in one place and they're sequestered. And that gives them that time and that space to really engage with the topic deeply. So when we talk about an online environment, you really want to make that seamless for the learner, have all the activities in one place or easily accomplished in a seamless way, because that's going to make a big difference on the learning experience.
Awesome. Okay, so we're going to talk more about this. We're going to get into this, but I just want to remind you all, those joining virtually, those here with us in Salt Lake, scan the QR code. That gets you to slido.com, where we have a discussion going. I'm hoping questions are coming in. You tell us. I know we're not going to pause quite yet.
We're already getting some great questions. I'm looking forward to doing these when we get to that question break.
Okay, perfect. All right. Yeah. So if anything's on your mind, please share with us. So I want to transition into our lessons learned. And we have put together 4 lessons learned collectively across NovoEd, Facebook, and TPC. Number 1, put people at the center of course design. We'll talk about what we mean by that. Number 2, people learn better together. And there's a lot of really great data to support that. Number 3, we got to put our marketing hats on and power up the marketing engine. So we'll share with you some learnings there, what we recognized in how to get learners to stay engaged, stay committed, and even show up in the first place. And then number 4, done is better than perfect. And we'll explain what that looks like. All right, so let's begin with our first lesson learned, putting people at the center of course design. You know, for us at the end of the day, you can have the best technology, but we can't forget the humans at the center of it all. And so for us at the presentation company, that meant video, creating a video culture to humanize the content so that these aren't like avatars or bad actors teaching you, but like real people. We chose to use some of our facilitators who like naturally know the content. They naturally teach this in ILT and VILT. So it was a natural to bring them over into a video format. And I know, Augustine, at Facebook, you guys are a video culture. This really resonated. Tell us more, because the data speaks for itself here. 95% of learners watched the completed videos. So Augustine,
Yes,
I'll let you take it.
Yeah. Here we were amazed to see that 95% of learners watch the complete videos all through the end. The reason of our surprise is because that's not common. Even in a culture like Facebook's, where people are they are used to consuming videos. What we learned from this is that TPC's investment in producing high-quality video really paid off. The videos gave the sense that the instructor was there, talking to you as an individual wanting to learn. And that was part of the engagement we saw.
Great. Thank you, Augustine. I think in addition to video, the other thing that was like a big aha is that learners want flexibility on what and when they want to consume the learning. And, you know, if we think back to like that question we asked about what challenges us with traditional e-learning, it's boring. It's kind of linear. You're sort of stuck, right? So one of the things that we chose to do is you can choose your own adventure. Like, yes, you need to get to course completion and win those 700 points, but how you get there is your own journey. You know, we have some learners skip assignment 2, but they do assignment 1 and they're really active in discussions and they watch all the lecture videos. Others choose a different path. The other thing we did is, and it was kind of a risk, I mean, this is really like we didn't think we'd do this and we were nervous, but we let all of the content in module 1, 2, 3, and 4, so the active learning journey, be available at day one. Like the doors open to this class and you see the big picture. And so as an adult learner, you can decide what order you want to go. Now, of course, we were hoping they'd go in order, but we gave them the flexibility to not have to. And to our surprise and delight, this was really interesting. Most people went in order. 97% consumed the learning in a linear order, even though they had the choice not to. So they got to see everything, but they went in order. We also noticed that about 63% complete the course over multiple days. Now, we do have learners that power through in one day. We have learners that wait until the end of the 10-day active learning journey. Again, we give them choice. We don't force them every day. I do have learners that take 30 minutes every day. They block their schedule. That's how they want to consume the learning because that works for their schedule. So again, I think the theme of flexibility, meeting learners where they're at, letting them learn in the flow of work really seems to resonate. We also noticed that about 1 in 3 return to the active learning, the self-guided reinforcement that kicks in after the active learning journey is complete. Let's see, I think I've heard you say, Charlie, you've used this word flexibility with constraints. And I just want to tap into that a little, because that was really something we leaned on you as a partner to guide us on, to say, look, maybe not sort of time release it, but give people the access. So can you speak a little bit to that whole flexibility with constraints piece?
Yeah, absolutely. So, it's sort of been trendy for a long time in learning and development to talk about giving learners options and letting them choose and so forth. But in some sense, asking learners to choose also places a burden on them. Mm-hmm. And if you're talking about, premium content like this, if you were to go to a fancy high-end restaurant, do you expect your expensive meal to be buffet style, where people choose and select? Or do you want the chef who has carefully thought about the arrangement to give you things in order? So you do want to allow some flexibility, but the flexibility that people want is the time. It's not necessarily the order, as we see in these statistics. So if you can spread that learning out, which has other benefits, by the way, so that they're spending 30 minutes here or there when they can find it, that's the flexibility that they want. But the fact that you're keeping them together at a certain pace also means that they're encountering those topics at the same time, and they can actually have a conversation about it because they're not all in different locations with respect to the journey.
Great. And Augustine, I know that the data speaks for itself. 95% of participants who completed the active learning journey went above and beyond. And I'm going to pass you the baton here to speak to this, Augustine, because this was really a shock to us. We thought at least they would get to 700, but they went above and beyond. Augustine?
You're right, Janine. It was surprising to see people going beyond. As you mentioned earlier, 700 points was enough to complete the course, to get credit for it. But 95% of the cohort went beyond that. They were going after 800, 900, even 1,000 points. And from that, I can tell you that they were really into it. They were immersed and they wanted more. Looking back at the experience, we can pinpoint some aspects that contribute to it. So flexibility and constraints, like Charlie mentioned, is one of them. Another one that I consider important is giving them a true peer experience. So on that virtual environment, they could see each other's work, assess its quality, and learn from it. So learn from each other's production. And of course, in that mix, a tad of healthy competition. So the gamification piece made everyone aware of each other's progress or lack of it. And no one wanted to stay behind. So all this kept people connected and engaged throughout the journey.
Great. Thank you, Augustine. So we've looked at lesson number 1, putting people at the center of course design. I want to move on to lesson 2, and then I promise we're going to pause for your questions, comments, reactions. Lesson number 2, people learn better together. And Charlie, I'm going to let you take this one. The data kind of speaks for itself.
Yeah, absolutely. There is a great deal of research that talks about the benefits of people learning better together. And in these stats that you see from learning leaders in a survey, they generally agree with that concept. And so the goal is really to think about how you can get people to learn together. In some sense, that should be intuitive to us that this is important. We are, as humans, social creatures, after all. And it's actually our predominant e-learning paradigm of a solo online learning experience, largely clicking next to continue, that's actually an unnatural way to learn. So in some sense, it's really no wonder that engagement rates are so low with that traditional form of e-learning. This is especially true when you talk about higher level skills. When what you're trying to learn involves depth and nuance, then it's really important to see other people's perspectives, to encounter questions and objections, and to really grapple with those things as the learner then starts to develop their own judgment and start to build their own expertise. So collaborative learning really engages people at a different level, and it drives deeper skill development. One thing you could say as a general rule is the deeper you want people to learn something, the more collaborative you should make that learning experience.
Yeah, and the way we made it collaborative, so, and I mentioned this earlier, it's cohort learning. And so cohort learning means groups of 30, 60, 90, and that was what we chose, are going through the learning together asynchronously on their own schedules within that 10-day active learning journey. But it really creates that collaboration, that culture of storytelling, which for us, I mean, the course is about storytelling. So we wanted to create that culture where they're looking at each other's stories together, because well after the class ends, the learning journey ends, that's what we want to continue, that culture of storytelling, where they're coaching each other in various ways that they're showing up in business. And the peer coaching, this is a close-up snapshot where you can see as an example the discussion boards. And I think our next screen will show, here's an example. We're asking, how would you introduce characters in a business narrative? A lot of people think, characters in a business story, I don't need that. And so we introduce ways that you can do that, and then we let the learners discuss. Are you going to introduce a named character, an unnamed character? Would you be a character and tell a personal story? So it's like they get to learn and then absorb and talk with each other. And it was really amazing to see 100% of participants who completed the active learning journey participated in peer discussions. And Augustine, I feel like this brought out the best of the Facebook community. What was your perspective just when you saw that peer coaching, that collaboration happening with your teams?
Yes, from my internal perspective, what I like to share is this excitement that was created. It was like there was a movement going on where people were engaged and they were excited to participate and expecting for the next chapter of their learning journey to unfold, be it from a comment from a peer, from a comment from the coach, the community manager. And so they're expecting what's the next chapter, just like what happens with a well-told story. And what we saw was the culture of storytelling coming to life right before our eyes. People were learning and producing stories together. So by partnering with the presentation company and Novo Ed, what we began to see was the possibility of our workers in various offices distributed throughout Latin America could collaborate with one another in a virtual environment that encourages idea sharing, feedback, and building together. And it was different than just regular meetings or regular work that people are used to do together virtually. There was this sense of excitement and wanting.
Yeah, Augustine, I just want to add, I remember even one of the first discussion boards, we have people introduce themselves to the cohort and why they're there, what they're looking to get out of it. And just seeing the global cross-functional collaboration happen in a discussion board where people realize, wait, you're in this class? Oh, wait, we work on similar accounts. I want to know what story you're working on. And just, it kind of naturally happened. And that was a true surprise and delight. I want to double click on something you said, Augustine, because we do have a learning community manager that rides shotgun with the cohorts. And it was a game changer. And it, I think in partnership with Novo Ed, you really encouraged us, you help us shape the role. The learning community manager is a real human that is kind of a professional cheerleader. I think that is their job, right? They're high-fiving virtually, they're nudging, they're motivating. And it's it's human and personalized, but also scaled. I mean, there's kind of a template to the role. We use real facilitators that are our real facilitators because they know the content. And, when, for example, a learner submits an assignment, that's not the end of it, right? So we need to encourage the peer coaching. So that's where the learning community manager comes in and says, really nice to see your assignment submitted. Tag 2 other learners in the cohort, make sure you're getting feedback, and remember to give feedback. And so there's kind of like I want to call it traffic copping a little bit, but in a nice way, like not in an angry way, but there's a sense of there's a human that's managing it. And it was a game changer because as the data shows, adding that learning community manager drove participant engagement and feedback up on the assignments by 5 times. And that was astounding to us. We didn't have this role in the beginning, but it was key. Is there anything to add, Augustine or Charlie, around the community manager?
Yeah, I'll add that, it'd be great to sit here today and say that you can really foster this peer engagement just through technology alone. But we're not there yet, and AI isn't evolved enough to help us much with that. So the truth is that to foster this kind of community experience within the learning environment, it does require a human touch. And the key to that, as you said, is to make that efficient and scalable. That is a place where technology can help in helping guide the right places, the right times to provide those nudges and making it really seamless and easy for the facilitator and learning community manager in addition to being easy for the learners.
Yeah, and I'm guessing like with some of your other clients that have really large cohorts, you could have multiple learning community managers, right? That are sort of nudging along the way depending on size.
Absolutely. And one of the good news for large organizations that have training staff for programs they might be running internally is that the trainers or some subset of the trainers actually might be very interested and eager to engage in this type of facilitation. So they could have a portfolio where they might do some live training, virtual training, and look after some of these virtual cohorts.
Yeah, in fact, our trainers that are newer, some of our newer, it's a great onboarding ramp because they get immersed in the kinds of questions and comments that show up in our storytelling classes from the ILT and VILT, but it's like safe because they're not on the spot. And so they're learning and they get a templatized set of copy paste messages that are, that sound really personalized and customized, but they're starting to get really close to the content. I know we want to hear from you and we want to just pause now, check in, how are we all doing? Is this resonating? Is this helpful? Questions that are coming up. So Darren, I'm going to let you moderate this piece, and then between Augustine, Charlie, and I, just assign us so
Absolutely.
We know who's answering.
All right, so once again, just grab the QR code, add your question. We've got a ton of questions here. I'd like to go to Augustine first and ask, there's a couple questions in here that I think work well together. How did you select the cohort? Was this a group was it open enrollment? Did you select people individually? And what did you do to set expectations for how they were going to fit this into the flow of their work?
Okay, so the first we used to have the same module, IoT, instructor led. So some people in the organization had taken the virtual storytelling course, and some hasn't. So first, that was the first distinction. Who hasn't attended this yet? To that group, we did invitation. So we sent invitation to these people by email, and letting them know that it was limited seats. That was important. So that was part of it. And sorry, Darren, what's the second part of the question?
What expectations did you set for them and how to work this into their flow of work? Like how they were going to fit, how they were going to make time. What time expectations did you set for them in that active learning journey?
Yeah. So we'll talk about this later, how we did the launch. But in a snapshot, first we tried to do it with a live meeting, get people together, explain to them how this new modality would work, but we didn't have much engagement. So we used some communication pieces, both sent from NovoEd's platform and also with a video that the presentation company produced that would explain how it would work and what people could expect by participating on this.
Yeah, and I can add in just a moment. We're gonna talk about the marketing side of this, because you're right. There's a whole marketing engine just to get the motivation to create that scarcity mindset, so that people do fill those cohorts. So I think we can answer that probably better as we keep going. Let's take maybe one or two other questions.
Two more.
Yeah.
So Charlie, there's a lot of questions about how we would integrate NovoEd with an LMS.
Yes. So look, organizations, obviously they have an LMS that's the backbone of their training administration infrastructure. A lot of organizations now have an LXP, and the idea there is a portal where you can assemble all your learning objects. And what we focus on is really the deeper skill building, things like leadership, innovation, storytelling, these higher level skills. NovoEd isn't a front door, so to speak. That should be an organization's LXP or LMS, whatever the case may be. And so we integrate with those platforms. The idea is to be able to assign and launch from your LMS or LXP, go through the experience in NovoEd, and because we're talking about multi-hour experiences, not things that you can complete in one sitting, you do go into the NovoEd platform to engage in that learning community. And then when people are finished and they meet those completion criteria, that signal would automatically come back into your system of record. That's how most people implement our platform.
Great. Thank you, Charlie. And Janine, one for you. There's a number of questions about the level of effort to actually put this together, to build it on the front end, and then to run it on an ongoing basis. How do you scale learning community managers? How do you make that work?
Yeah, so PS, we're still figuring it out, because we are all learning. For us, it made sense to use our facilitators. These are natural human beings that know the content so well. I think in partnership with NovoEd, we've found, I think, the secret sauce or the perfect balance of, we're not doing full-on coaching. That is a bolt-on, because it's really hard to do coaching over 10 days and have a facilitator on standby 24 hours when someone's in APAC versus EMEA versus the US. We actually tried to, and then we realized no one wants that job. And so we recognized that coaching needed to be an event, and it is an optional add-on for some clients. I know with Facebook, we tried it and we were like, nope, they don't show up. But we do have some clients that want that kickoff with the coach, and then they want the check-in with the coach along the active learning journey. So a lot of this, the power of it is you get to personalize and customize based on the learners, based on, in our case, the clients that are consuming it. But as far as the learning community manager and scaling that role, TBD, I think we're seeing such high engagement with it that we can't not have it. And for now, it's working. But yes, I think we'd have, to really look at scale as we go.
Sure. And I think you have levers, Janine. For something that requires the highest engagement, you're going to turn on those facilitation and human touch levers to the maximum. But there's a lot of different training, options out there and programs. And for some, you might turn it down. For some, you might have larger cohorts and provide less of that human touch, really depending on what the organization's goals are.
The truth is, the peer coaching is the magic of the class. That's what we see. So the learning community manager is not the star. It's like they're the backup dancer, just kind of like prodding along, truthfully. That's kind of the analogy, I think. The main squeeze are the learners in the cohort, because they're coaching each other. And that, to me, is the power of this social collaborative environment. All right, I'm going to keep us going if we're okay. Moving on.
I just want to add.
Oh, sure. Augustine, please.
That's a really powerful force, the peer coaching. It creates this fabric, the social fabric inside the organization. People start use the trust they already have to support each other, and there are connections that remain after the module here inside the company. Yeah.
Great addition. Thanks, Augustine. All right. So I know there was a question around, even to you, Augustine, how did we get people there? How do we get them motivated? So that really moves us into lesson number 3, power up the marketing engine. And we're going to share 3 things that we did that really worked well. having a welcome video, I'll explain, having an internal champion to really kind of create the motivation on the inside, at least in this case at Facebook, and then personalized yet automated communications that are powered by the back engine of this platform. So let me begin first, and I hate to see myself here, but okay, this was the video. My colleague Kevin and I did this welcome video that is really designed to welcome learners and give them a clear why as to why they should come to the class. And I know, Augustine, this was a video that we used just to get interest alongside that email, getting people excited, like wanting to sign up. So that was a big piece to us. We also recommended, or I believe, Augustine, this was really in your partnership, having what we call a Chief Cat Corraller. This is the official title, CCC. I know, Augustine, you could speak to this, but this is like on your end, partnering with us on the inside. Tell us more.
Yes, for this program, we recruited an internal champion. At that time was Priscilla Sato is her name. She's not with us anymore, but I like to mention her here because she did a really good job. And what she did is to follow the cohort, make sure they were having the best experience possible. So it all started with creating scarcity and filling the cohorts, because we want to make sure learners feel like they have been chosen and lucky to attend the training. So that was part of the communication, creating this sense of scarcity. We also used communication channels that we know our audience pays attention to, like our internal chat groups, in which we share live updates on people's progress. We would, and Priscilla, what she did is she would celebrate the first few people to achieve important milestones during their learning journey. And all this marketing part, as you called it, is important because it helps learners prioritize the training and take action on key assignments.
Great. Thank you, Augustine. So in addition to the Chief Cat Corraller, I do recall Priscilla was amazing, and she would brief us on what was happening on the internal channels. In addition to that, there's this whole engine on the back end with NovoEd powering the communications. And you can just see a snapshot of the types of communications that learners are getting in the learning journey. And what I love about it is it's automated. No one's sitting there manually sending emails, but they're highly personalized based on where a learner is at in the journey and what they've done, right? Because you're not going to get the same email if you skipped this assignment or didn't provide a discussion chat. So tell us a little bit about the power of the automated personalized communications at NovoEd.
Yeah, absolutely. One of the maybe not so hidden secrets of getting engagement in these training programs that really can't be completed in one sitting is that you need to do a lot of reminding. But actually, people don't mind being reminded if they believe in the value of the learning experience that you're providing. But how can you do that in an efficient way? One of the things we focused a lot on in our platform is to be able to configure and automate nudges and communications to really personalize them and have them triggered based on certain activities, based on progress, time elapsing or not, so that you can really target your communications and nudge those people along at the right places without spamming everyone else. And that's really the key to scaling that kind of nudging.
Yeah, I like that it wasn't a one-size-fits-all. And we also learned as we went. I think in the beginning we had like 12 blasts of emails that went out with the course, and then now it's like 7 and even possibly less depending on what you're doing. So I do like that flexibility with the communications. Is there anything to add, Augustine? Not to put you on the spot, but anything we've missed around the personal communications, the automated? And we don't hear Augustine, so maybe we can. You're on mute.
Yes.
Ah, there you are. Okay, we hear you.
I'm back. So the personalized communications that Charlie explained that can be automated, they contain relevant info to the person that is receiving. So the system knows what module they've gone through, what they haven't, how many points they have. So the communication also comes with very personalized information, where that person's in progress, what that person's progress is, what they need to do. So it becomes relevant, not only the learning journey itself, but the communication they're getting, they have the sense, oh, it was done for me. It's helping me specifically advance in my journey.
Yes. And I like that it's a vehicle to get learners back into the platform, right? Because they go back to their jobs and then it's like, wait, come back. Remember, we want to hear from you. All right. So I want to keep us moving because we're almost going to be out of time. We've looked at the first 3 lessons learned. Let's get our way to our last lesson, and that is done is better than perfect. On the MPK campus, the Menlo Park campus at Facebook, if you haven't been, the walls are filled with these posters. And I know that when we started working with Facebook, one that really stood out to me, because I'm very type A and perfectionist, and that's another story, but it's this one, done is better than perfect. And having a partner like Facebook really kind of pushed on us to say, look, we're not going to get it right at day one. It's not going to be the perfect on-demand storytelling class at day one. And by the way, it wasn't. But having that partner that's willing to test and iterate and be okay with a little bit messy under the scenes to start was really a game changer. So Augustine, I want to hear from you. Maybe you can share with us, what does done is better than perfect mean culturally at Facebook to you guys? What were you testing and how did you apply that mindset as you piloted this on-demand program?
Yeah, Janine, it's about not being afraid of experimenting and then running tests and iterating. So every excursion into implementation, it's a learning lab. Mm-hmm. The strategy specifically with this module, this course that we implemented with you, was to run small tests and assess people's response. And the main factor we're looking for was engagement. So I saw in the word cloud that Darren shared that engagement was the big word in the middle. I feel you. People are watching this. I know what it is. I had learning Facebook and engagement. It is an issue, especially when it comes on demand courses. So we track that very closely. And we don't always get right. We have to test and see how was engagement. And then test a different idea. How was engagement? Keep learning. Janine, do you remember the first idea we tested? We wanted to launch the cohort. And traditionally, we'll do this live. So I said, no, let's do a live meeting and bring a respected internal leader to talk, and then people will pay attention to this. The idea sounded great, but when we implemented it, engagement was so-so. There was some people there, but not everyone wanted to be there. So then we regrouped, reassessed, and created our next idea to test. And that was, let's go asynchronous. What would happen if you go totally asynchronous? So we leveraged NovoEd's personalized communication, TPC's welcome video, and the internal chat group that I mentioned earlier. We implemented it and discovered that engagement was much higher. So that showed us the road ahead at that moment, what the next step should be, what to keep investing on. So done is better than perfect. It's about test and learn. It's all about that.
Yeah, you're reminding me, I think the first iteration of our pilots, the active learning journey was 4 weeks, if I recall. And we thought, yes, we want to be really generous with the time. People just fit it into their learning. And we discovered they just all wait till the last minute and then cram it in. And so that's where we pulled back and said, 4 weeks is too long. The 2-week active learning journey seems to be the right amount of time where they get 2 full business weeks plus a weekend in case people want to squeeze it in. So I can't agree more. I think we're constantly testing and iterating. We're still doing it. Anything to add on that?
No, I think that pacing and spacing, there's so many interesting considerations there. One is that, you can have this live type experience in an asynchronous format because people are thinking about things at the same time. And then you've got the learning benefits of spacing out the learning. You actually don't want people to cram all of it in within an hour if you can help it. So I think paying attention to that pacing, being really thoughtful about it for your learning objectives makes a lot of sense.
Agreed. All right. So just to recap here, our lessons learned. Put people at the center of course design. Let's remember the humans at the center of the learning. Number 2, people learn better together. That collaborative learning is key. Power up the marketing engine so we can have a great on-demand course, but we've got to really think about marketing mindfulness and how we're going to keep people engaged, how we're going to get to them. And then as Augustine shared, it's not perfect and done is better than perfect. And we are still learning. These are still a work in progress. All right, I want to pause for our final Q&A for those joining virtually, those with us here in Salt Lake. Darren, I'm going to hand it over to you, and then we'll share some final thoughts before we wrap.
Great. So there's a bunch of different questions. A big one that's coming up is, what's the sample size for some of this data that you're seeing? This is 6 recent Facebook cohorts of about 30 apiece. There are also a lot of questions about, that 30-person cohort and how these lessons might apply to much larger cohorts. And I think, Charlie, you can talk about perhaps how these 4 lessons apply in those situations where, you're doing a cohort size of 100 or 1,000 or perhaps much larger than that.
Yes, so it really depends on what type of experience you want to cultivate. And when you talk about this learning community manager or facilitator, there's really 2 types of things that they're doing. One is very scalable, and one is just somewhat scalable, as you've been learning, right? The somewhat scalable one is if you want that person to give feedback to learners on the things that they're doing and the things that they're trying, that's a little bit less scalable. It still can be quite efficient, but it requires relatively high human touch. But those things related to nudging, reminding, getting people excited, and moving the cohort along, starting that, setting the norms of peer interaction, that is highly scalable. That doesn't take that much, a different amount of time from that person, whether you've got a 30-person cohort or the 90-person, which you're looking at. And we've seen cohorts, I've seen consistent ones at 250 to 300 people, where there will be a trainer who might spend a quarter of their time throughout that learning experience, mostly doing that nudging and reminding and excitement part.
Great. Even Augustin, even after you talked about the customized email communications and how that worked, I'm still seeing a lot of concern from people around just the volume of email that participants might be getting. Did you get that kind of feedback when we actually got this email communication much more fine-tuned?
People didn't mind at all.
Okay.
I think NovoEd did a really good job in balancing this. They're automated. So from us, the learning team, it was not a heavy lift. And from participants' perspective, it was right timed and the right amount. I didn't get any complaints about it.
Great.
I just want to say, though, that I think this is where having your internal champion, Augustin, on the inside made a difference. Because I know, and I remember Priscilla was in the Facebook private groups, chatting with the cohorts, and we weren't seeing that. That wasn't anything tied to the learning platform per se. So I do think it was a combination of targeted emails, not too many, because nobody wants to be blasted, but having that internal champion.
And we shouldn't discount the value of the learning experience and the value of the skill that they're going to be, that they believe that they will be learning. If it's something that I don't care that much about, 5 or 7 emails might be too many.
Yeah.
But if it's something that I think is going to be a core skill that helps me in my professional future, 20 or 30 emails might be just fine. So that's a key part of it as well.
Yeah, great.
And on a related point, Janine, would you talk about your vision for that extended portion of the learning journey, that out to 90 days, how you plan for people to use it?
Yeah, good questions. So this active learning journey is the 10 days, and then the ongoing reinforcement kicks in. It unlocks, so that is one piece of content I believe they can see but not touch it, so they kind of know it's coming. We tell them it's coming, but it is a little bit of the carrot that we dangle, because why not? And in that additional content, it's bonus videos, it's additional resources, additional downloads, adjacent content. So for example, how does storytelling show up when you're writing an email? How does storytelling show up when you're telling a team story? Like, who does what? And so it was sort of additional content that was going to help them, but not necessarily critical for assignments that will help them get to completion. We have some customers that prefer that as a drip, where we drip it out every week. I know Facebook just said, give it all, don't bother us. All right. So this is where I do like the flexibility of a platform like NovoEd, where it really is so personalized. But that means a weekly email so for some organizations, they don't want that. And so we chose to sort of package it as a bundle, and it releases. And people can just go back and say, wait, where was that story planner? I want to download that again. Or what was that big idea topic I forgot? Or so-and-so had a great comment in the chat. I want to go capture that. So that's how we're seeing it. And yeah. Great.
Another one, perhaps back to Charlie and then perhaps to Augustin as well. obviously we do have this point structure, and I've got questions like, how is that structured? Is it for the videos? Is it for the assignments? I know we've done a mix, but how do you see other folks using the point structure to do that incentivizing the gamification on the platform?
Yeah, absolutely. So there's the points that can be allocated to certain things, and then you can specify certain things that have to be done as well. So you can have to-dos, and then you can have points that have to be achieved. And you can take a couple of different approaches with that. You could use the points just to sort of spur the social aspects of things, or you could structure the points so that it's really tied to the activities that they do. And we talk about gamification, and I think, Augustine makes this point about the fact that because people are present and they see what each other are doing, that's really the gamification part. The point system is actually most useful to convey the importance of relative activities. So if I see a discussion and I can earn 10 points for doing that. I see an assignment, I can earn 50 points for doing that. And I see a capstone assignment that's 100 points. You're communicating to me how relatively important these things are, and I can decide how I want to spend my time.
Yeah.
And Augustine, just going back to you, I mean, I've spent time in Sao Paulo with your team. They're fun. How do the points resonate?
They're fun. Those Brazilians.
They're fun. I think, like Charlie mentioned, the points helps people know the relative importance of all the elements, and also keep track. How am I doing in terms of progression? What I'd like to highlight about the gamification piece is the leaderboard, where people could see not only how other people are doing in terms of points, but also when they uploaded something, a new piece to the system. So this created novelty. See, usually on-demand or e-learning courses, they're static. The content's there, it's sitting there, and you have to click next for it to move. There was always novelty. Every day, somebody moved in the rank, somebody uploaded something new. So this part of the gamification that was live and unpredictable, because it was based on people's movement, kept people interested and connected.
Right, and Augustine, a learner getting an email notification saying someone viewed your assignment and gave you a comment. As you know at Facebook, that type of social trigger is highly engaging in terms of wanting to go back and see what that is, the curiosity. That's not something you traditionally get in a solo e-learning program.
Great. So we've got a ton more questions. We'll be here after the session. We're going to give you the opportunity to contact both TPC and NovaWed. We'd love to talk about some more of these items and some of the asks that I've seen coming in. With that, I'm going to turn it back over to Janine.
Thank you. Yeah. So I kind of want to look into the future before we wrap and look at what the next 3 to 5 years looks like. I'm going to ask Augustine and you, Charlie, where do you see on-demand learning going, especially as it relates to this seamless, integrated learning environment? Tell us what's the future going to look like.
Well, that's a tall order, Janine, but I'll share my perspective on that. I think that we're just at the cusp, really, of what's possible. We're really shifting from this old paradigm of web, computer-based training, and I think a couple things that I'm excited about are things that help advance scale, that help advance peer interaction and practice. So one of the things, for example, is to cultivate that peer coaching in a richer way. So you might have, there are a lot of external coaching platforms out there, so there might be some connections to those. Or it might be cultivating other champions and subject matter experts within your organization and tapping into them as coaches. Now, it's a lot easier said than done. They're very busy people, but I think technology can help with that, make things streamlined. But if you can tap into an organization's own resources and knowledge that helps with the scalability, then you can provide the touch that you need as the expert, and they can provide more support internally. The other area is, there's a lot of conversation around reinforcement, whether it's dripping or making additional content be exposed to people. I see some exciting things there about turning that not just into content that's consumed or quizzes, but actually opportunities to practice. So now that we have a lot more video capabilities, for example, across different platforms, you could have people be nudged every month for the next 6 months and maybe presented with a scenario, have them record a video of themselves practicing something or giving a self-reflection. So how can you take the practice elements and break it outside of the confines of that course, but have it be ongoing practice. And then, oh, by the way, to be able to connect and calibrate that to an organization's competency models and talent management systems. I think there's a lot of interest and excitement in that area.
Very exciting. Augustine, I know we just have a few minutes left. So anything to add? Where do you see on-demand learning going, at Facebook or broadly?
I'll be brief. I think two aspects will keep growing and developing through time. First is that virtual experiences will become progressively more immersive. They'll be more interactive and feel more real. For example, last week, Facebook launched a new VR tool called Workrooms, in which people can have a virtual presence and experience being together, collaborating in three-dimensional environments. So that's the technology side. And then the human side. In this virtual environment, the learning, I believe, the learning experiences that will stand out will be the ones that make it human, by making sure it tends to people's basic needs of connection, being seen, and feeling they're gaining mastery over specific skills.
Great. I want to piggyback off that, Augustine, as we wrap and leave us all with a final thought, and that is, I think people learning together is just better. And I think we've just scratched the surface of where this could go. But I just want to say, let's not forget the humans at the center of learning, because if we can keep that in mind, we can create really powerful on-demand learning. So with that, we want to thank you. If you'd like to continue the conversation, you can scan the QR code and get in touch with us and really explore this further. We also have our contact information on the screen. I want to personally thank my partners here today, Charlie, Augustine. Thank you for coming. Thank you for joining us remotely, Augustine. We wished you were here, but we got the second best virtually. So thank you. Come chat with us if you'd like. And with that, we will wish you a farewell and thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Thanks
everyone.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye, Augustine.